Hi, my name's Luisa and I'm from Outside Lives Wild Tribe.
Hi, I'm Annie, hedgehog lady.
And today we're going to be learning about the hedgehogs that are going to come to stay with us as part of the Hoglets group. So I don't know much about these hedgehogs at all. So can you tell me a bit about Bracken and Bramble?
Bracken and Bramble. Well, Bracken and Bramble.
Bramble.
Bracken and Bramble.
Too many bees.
Bracken and Bramble have both lost one of their back legs each through different injuries.
Yeah.
Can be from being trapped, from strimmers, gardening equipment,
Yeah.
anything like that. So they've both lost a back leg. The vets performed an amputation. So obviously it wouldn't be safe to release them generally into the wild because they'd be victim of prey. You know, they'd be an easy target for prey. So we need a safe area to release them where they can live as if they're wild, as hedgehogs
as
should.
natural as possible.
As natural as possible, but safely, so we can keep half an eye on them, check them occasionally to make sure that their stumps are okay and they're not sore. And hopefully they'll still breed and we'll have baby hedgehogs that can go on and live wild, which would be lovely.
And has that hindered them in any sort of way? Do they have extra care? Because this stump, I know she said about making sure it's clean and things like that.
Yeah, it is mainly they've had to learn a new way of going to the toilet, which they've both done really, really well, and they're both keeping themselves clean now as well, so we're having to do less and less for them. Bracken, for one, he is so quick, he can run as fast as any hedgehog with 4 legs. He's really, really good, and he's quite a character, but he's just getting bored now of being in a run and a cage. He's looking for the next stage of his life, really.
Did they ever try and escape?
No, he hasn't tried to escape, but I'm sure once they hear the things outside they will, because they are quite good diggers and climbers.
I think they can climb fences, can't they, sometimes?
Yeah. So we need to make sure where we release them is really secure for them. Both dug down, so we've got, if they dig underneath they can't get through, and a roof on so they can't climb out.
I've heard once are they good swimmers as well, hedgehogs?
They love to swim.
Yeah.
They absolutely love to swim, but they forget that they get tired. So that's why they often drown in garden ponds and things, because people don't put ramps in or steps in for them to climb out. So it's really important if you've got a pond
to make
either a slope or a step or a ramp for them to climb out of.
What typical, I know you said about garden equipment, is there any other injuries that are very common with them?
Yes, there are. They often get stuck in drains if your drain covers are broken or clogged, and the water pools, they'll go there looking for water for a drink and they'll get stuck and they'll drown. We've had quite a few with really nasty injuries or death from being stuck down drains. Rubbish in your garden. Netting is a big problem. If you have netting in your garden, we always ask that you keep it 6 inches off the ground, so it will stop birds, but it means the hedgehogs don't get tangled in it, because that's another way that they will lose limbs.
And then road traffic accidents as well, I imagine.
Less and less now. Now it's more pesticides and litter.
So I would have thought more it would be road. That would be like the main thing. Would be that's interesting.
No litter. Us humans are killing them off, and loss of their habitat. People are putting astroturf down instead of grass. People are having concrete on the bottom of their fence panels. So hedgehogs in the wild cover 2 or 3 kilometres a night looking for food. So if they can't move from garden to garden, they can't get enough food to eat, and they will die. They need a really well-balanced diet.
Because a lot of our hedgehogs now, they are restricted to urban populations, aren't they? You don't really find them in a place like this in the countryside.
We're campaigning new house builders and councils now where they're putting fences in to make hedgehog highways. So they just need just need a little gap in the fence where they can get through the bottom. A dog or a cat wouldn't get through, but a hedgehog will, and it just makes a hedgehog's life so much easier.
And there's a bit of a thing where people they blame badgers a lot for the hedgehog decline as well. Is there any truth in that?
It would have to be. Any wild animal will always go for the easiest food option.
Hedgehogs aren't that easy.
And unprickling a hedgehog isn't easy. So a badger would have to be very hungry to go through the hassle. But yes, they will eat a hedgehog, but it would have to be a very hungry badger.
I know in Gwen and Munif, a lot of people have said, because there's been an increase in badger populations and they've stopped seeing hedgehogs around, people have sort of put 2 and 2 together and said, oh, it's the badgers, it says.
They eat similar food.
That's competition, isn't it?
It is competition food because they eat slugs, worms, beetles, snails, things like that. So another popular misconception is people feed hedgehogs mealworms.
Oh, really?
Which is really, really bad for them. But people think they're doing the kind thing. And even under the bird feeders, the bird food's falling on the ground. A little tiny bit is fine for a hedgehog. It won't have any detrimental effect. Yeah. But if they're going from garden to garden and doing that, they're getting too much of bad food.
And milk is another one, isn't it?
Milk, they're totally lactose intolerant. I have to give the baby hedgehogs milk, but it's a special formula milk. It's not general cow's milk.
That's what they always used to say, didn't they? It was like bread and milk.
Bread and milk, and it's the two worst things you can give them. Yeah, the best thing to put out in your garden for any wildlife is shallow bowls of water. Yeah. And for hedgehogs, dried cat food or wet cat food. Yeah. And you can actually be worried about cats getting to the food before the hedgehogs. If you Google, there are some really, really simple hedgehog feeding stations you can make using a plastic box and bricks. So the cats can't get the food, but the hedgehogs
So it's not even like you have to go out and buy them. You can
No, you can make it with stuff you've got in your garden.
There's a lot about this hedgehog houses as well. You get all these really fancy ones, but it's literally just a box, isn't it? That's all somewhere safe.
It's a box with the side entrance, so again, a cat or a dog can't get the paw in and get them out. Yeah. That's, it's really simple and they love it. And if you look after the hedgehogs, they'll keep coming back.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. And then with cat food, I remember reading something about this as well. I did a bit of a project on only a small one.
Ask about fish flavours.
Yes.
It's a myth. They can have fish. They can have fish flavours. I sometimes get really fussy hedgehogs that only eat one brand of hedgehog food or cat food.
Come on, guys.
Morrison's biscuits are a firm favourite with all of them. We did a taste test and they all preferred the Morrison's
cat biscuits. It's like an advertising campaign for Morrison's.
Sometimes the cat food in gravy, they can have it, but it can make them a little bit smelly.
Yes.
So, but they can have it. If you find a hedgehog and it needs food, they can have any cat or dog food. Not treats, just the food.
Just the actual food.
Yeah, no treats.
And I've got a bit off topic here, supposed to be talking about.
It's all relevant, isn't it?
And then, so when Bracken and Bramble move here, what sort of enclosure they're going to need? Like what sort of size?
The bigger the better, really. And we need to make sure it's completely secure so that they can't dig out of it or climb out of it. And we also need to have human access so that we can open it in some way and get in, because obviously we need to occasionally check their stumps, check that they haven't got any sores or rubs to get in to change the food for them, because we will need to supplementary feed them, change the bedding, change the water.
And would we give them a bit, like you said they like to swim, but is it something you do? Do you put a bit of water in there, or is it just...
They normally just paddle in the water, but if we've got a nice big shallow water dish, they'll just paddle in the water dish, which they will enjoy. They don't need to swim.
And then would you use sort of chicken wire? Is that like something?
Yeah, you can use chicken wire. Chicken wire would be fine. Obviously the smaller hole, the better really, because and make sure, and you have to keep regularly checking it for signs that they've tried to chew through it. Yeah. Because they are persistent and they do have lots of teeth.
Have you ever been bit by a hedgehog?
Quite a few times. Yeah. They're not too bad. They nip a bit. They can break the skin. Yeah. But they're not too painful. They're more they jump and spike you.
Oh God.
Yeah, that really hurts, and that'll hurt for days. Because I'm used to picking them up. I don't wear gloves now. Yeah. But if they jump and spike you, it hurts for a couple of days.
So then when we have our hoglets come in. Yeah. So if they want to handle, is that going to be possible for them to handle?
As long as it's not regular. We've got to remember they are wild animals.
As wild as possible.
The whole point of them coming here is for them to be as wild as they possibly can be. But there will be occasions when we could handle hedgehogs and see them and come and meet them closer. That won't be a problem.
And then, so that'll be gloves.
Gloves, plenty of antibacterial and hand washing. And towels. Yeah. And then, because they have do they have any skin problems or anything? Do they have... They can get ringworm. I've just released a boy this week who I've had for nearly 6 months treating ringworm, and we finally got rid of it all. So yes, they can. So it's, with any wild animal you should wash your hands. And something really interesting about hedgehogs, we think they smell. they think we smell worse.
Do they?
So once we've touched them or held them, you'll often see them spitting all over themselves to get the smell of you off them. So yeah, it's quite common.
Because then there's a bit of a thing, isn't there, about fleas on hedgehogs? Is that another myth?
The hedgehogs, I've never had one, touch wood, with fleas, but they can have fleas, but they won't transfer to other animals or humans.
No. So are they hedgehog specific?
Only hedgehog specific.
Oh,
I've forgotten the technical name for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're host specific only.
Oh, that's really
it's more common that they get ticks. So obviously, as your cat and dog can get ticks, and wild animals get ticks, but we just use a tick remover tool and get them all off.
That's satisfying to use one of them as well, isn't it?
It is. If they've got lots and lots of ticks on them, sometimes they have 20, 30 ticks on them on a small hedgehog, that's a sign that they're really not well.
Yeah.
But the odd one you do get, and we just use a tick remover tool. If they had lots, we'd go and see a vet.
Yeah. So then with Bracken and Bramble, what sort of care do we have to flea and worm them? What sort of daily care, weekly care do they need?
No, the only time they would need worm treatment would be if one of them had a persistent cough, which would be a sign that they had lungworm from eating too many snails or slugs.
Yeah.
But generally, no, unless we heard one of them really, really coughing, we wouldn't intervene, because they're living wildly, that's fine.
And they can fight a lot of these things off, can't they? And it's just cleaning the stumps
as needed. But I've found as they're progressing, and that we've been doing not physio on them, but watching them and making them walk for their food and increasing how far they walk. Now they are managing to keep themselves pretty clean.
That's good.
So it is just every couple of weeks, just check that there's no sores or rubbing or anything.
So that'd be the only time really you'd handle them, isn't it? To have a little look, check
and
over.
Maybe occasional weight check.
Yeah.
Bracken, much to his disgust, is on a bit of a diet at the moment, because we found out we were feeding him up, trying to build him up, but as he put on once he went over sort of 650, 700 grams, he wasn't able to move as easily, and then his stump was rubbing. So it was a case of just keep him around that size, because obviously we want to keep him mobile, we want to keep him moving. I want him to be able to hunt his own food and get his own food, so he can live like a normal hedgehog.
Like a natural. So what is like a healthy weight for a hedgehog? I remember seeing like a campaign, I don't know who it was by, saying, if you find a hedgehog in your garden, weigh it. If it weighs under so much,
it all depends on the time of year. I mean, obviously in the summer, if you find an 80-gram hedgehog that seems fit and healthy, it's fine, it's going about, and it's got time. Coming up to winter now, if by the end of September, beginning of October, they're not at 400 grams, they may struggle over winter.
Yeah.
And you should contact a hedgehog hospital or a rescue for advice. And they may tell you, hedgehog's fine, release.
Let them go.
But take advice. And then as we go on into the winter, sort of end of October, November time, 600 grams.
600 grams.
I always say size of two fists, like that.
Yeah.
If they're smaller than that at the end of October,
that's when you should be
that's a good guide that you think, okay, this one might need to be just kept in the warm for the winter.
And then do they hibernate all winter? Do they sleep all straight for the winter, wake up in the spring, or do they?
No, they go off, and it varies from year to year depending on the temperatures. If the weather goes very cold, they will sleep. If we get a slight warm day or a bright day, they sort of wake up, can be quite groggy, go out, hunt a bit of food, stock up and go back to bed again. If we have a run of a few days, they might be awake for a few days. It all depends on the weather, but if it is cold, they will go to sleep.
What about animals like that? Could bats do it as well? I'm sure there is a certain word for it. I can't remember what it is.
Hibernation?
No, when they go into this
the semi sleep.
hibernation, they pop out for a bit.
Yeah.
Bit like they're drunk.
They like I say, they just wake up enough just to replenish their stores, and it's really important that even throughout the winter we keep food and water in the garden, so if they wake up hungry and thirsty,
there's stuff
there for them, and that's something that everybody can do in their gardens. And obviously if it freezes, break the ice on it. Putting marbles or little pebbles in helps. It keeps the ice thinner.
Oh, that's interesting. Like I said, isn't it, like, there's so many ways you can make your garden hedgehog friendly, isn't there? Like even just like native plants and things like that, like more bugs you've got.
It is all about your soil health and your worms, your beetles, your slugs, your snails, your other beetles, flies. one I've just released, he loved spiders. Any spiders, he just adored them, and he used to suck them up like spaghetti. They were his favourite treat.
I suppose like deadwood and like leaf litter, that's like another.
It is. People often think though that hedgehogs survive really well in woodland areas, and they don't.
No.
They need a traditional garden with the healthy soil for the worms and things, and the plants. But I mean, sometimes you can have a hedgehog box in your garden, and they'll still choose to hibernate underneath your shed or underneath your decking, or they find their own safe places.
Where's the strangest place you've had to get a hedgehog from?
Quite often down drains, but quite often sort of hedgehog grass box, lawnmower grass boxes. Yeah. They love, for some reason they love them.
I imagine that's quite warm though, isn't it?
Yeah, they make their own little nest. I mean, the rule of thumb with hedgehogs is, if you see one out in the day and it's moving about quickly, busy, carrying nesting materials, or looks like it's looking for food, don't be too concerned, just keep an eye. But people say, oh, I've got a hedgehog sunbathing in my garden. Hedgehogs never, ever, ever sunbathe. If a hedgehog's lying still in your garden, it's very, very sick. Yeah. And what you do immediately could save its life. Yeah. So pick it up with a towel or gardening gloves, put it in a box with a towel, a hot water bottle if you've got one to keep it warm. If you haven't got a hot water bottle, any plastic drinks bottle filled with warm water and wrapped in a towel will just give off some heat, and then obviously contact a hedgehog rescue or a hedgehog hospital, and they will arrange to pick up or collect.
Yeah, you got to think of this sunbathing.
But I've had ones that, you know, people said, oh, he's been sunbathing in my garden for the last 3 days, and he's not sunbathing, he's very, very poorly. It's, you know, people don't know.
You don't know, you do just assume that sort of thing.
So that's really important that people know that. If they're busy running around your garden, they're on a mission, they're perfectly fine.
Got things to do.
Normally means they're going to have babies, or they've got babies to feed.
How many babies do you usually have hedgehogs?
About 5 or 6 in a litter.
I've seen videos when they've been walking across people's gardens, they're like in a
in a little chain, and one will come round and round them up. And we're seeing more and more and more over the last few years, whereas they would normally have 1 litter in the spring, and those babies would be big enough by October, the right size to hibernate. We're just coming in now, and we're getting litters now. So the second litters, because the summers have been warmer,
of course,
which is worrying, because those babies are not going to survive without human intervention.
And then would mum hibernate with her babies?
If we find mum and the babies now, we would bring them all in together, so she can still look after the babies and hibernate with them, and we'd just supplementary feed the babies. But if they were left out in the wild, the babies wouldn't survive, they'd perish.
And when do they get their spikes?
Within a few days.
Is it?
Yeah, within about 3 days they get white spikes, and then they get
little albinos.
Yeah, and then they go, once they've got proper brown spikes, we know they're about 4 weeks old.
I've never seen a baby hedgehog. I'm going to have to have a look on Google in a bit.
Yeah. They're born with none, but they very quickly grow like white, like cartilagey spines to protect them. They're very sweet.
Yeah. What sort of hedgehogs have you got at the moment, other than Bracken and Bramble?
I've got one that's quite poorly. He's in the vets today. He's had a little minor operation on his stomach, and then I've got 2 other babies that will be with me over winter, because they won't be big enough to.
Do you get quite attached to them as well?
I do. I adore them, and sometimes they have really big personalities. So there'll be the odd one that's got a really big personality. But the best thing for me is watching them be released. Go, I mean, sometimes I'll cry because I'll miss them, but it is such an amazing feeling knowing that you've got them to that point, and they are now off in their wildlife, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, but that is amazing to see them.
Yeah.
And do you ever whereabouts do you release them? Is it like in your
suitable gardens? Sometimes they go back where they were found. If the garden where they were found is suitable, we try and release them back where they were found. Sometimes people don't want them back in their garden for whatever reason, or it's near a really busy road, or the house has got terriers in and things like that, and you think, okay, this probably isn't the best place to release them. And then we have people with really established gardens with hedgehogs already in, so they can integrate and breed.
Are they quite territorial?
They can be over nests, but they tend... They say that they on a night time, one will sleep in a box one night, and then another night it'll sleep in a different box, and they swap over.
Aww.
But I think if they've got babies, yes,
then they will be.
They can be quite aggressive, and they can be quite noisy and vocal.
That's all the time. I've in my garden. I've never seen him in my garden, but I've heard him, and I thought. The weirdest sounds.
Yeah, they can make some quite loud noises. The males can be quite grumpy.
Yeah.
And they just get a bit.
Little snorts and.
Yeah, little hisses and. Yeah, but we would prefer. We know if there's hedgehogs already in a garden, the garden's got everything it needs to support for hedgehogs. So we try to, and if we're unsure, we would always release a male and female together.
Yeah.
So that obviously
they've already got.
Yeah, they've got a pair.
So do you start having quite a lot when you rescue them? Do you try and pair them up? Little couples.
Yeah. If we're not sure that there's lots of hedgehogs in the garden already, yes, we would try and pair them up just to give them a breeding chance because they are an endangered species now. So obviously anything we can do to encourage them to breed.
You said before, don't pair up. It's always opposite sex, never same sex hedgehogs.
Yeah, just helps to prevent fights.
Yeah.
You know. Like saying to encourage them to breed. So we need to get the numbers up.
Yeah, of course. It's crazy how much they've gone down the past couple of years. There's something like 60%. Something a big number. 15
years ago there were 30 million hedgehogs worldwide. I think now there are less than 500,000.
Yeah.
Which is really scary. But most of that is due to people's gardening. People have got gravel in their gardens now. They've got astroturf. Like I say, the concrete fencing.
Yeah, because that's the worst.
They are the worst things.
Climb.
Yeah, they can't. So we need to get people back planting things in their gardens, and like I say, leaving food and water out.
That's the thing, isn't it? People, it's more the work, isn't it? With like having a proper planted garden, you think, I can't bother with that.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, but I think people, especially since lockdown, are realising the benefits of having wildlife in your garden. There's more to, for your mental health, for your whole well-being. It's lovely, the excitement of seeing a hedgehog walking across your lawn. It's so exciting.
I had a frog in my garden for the first time in about 3-4 years. And I'm 23. I was going, Mum, look.
We had lizards, common lizards in ours, and we were much excitement in our household with lizards.
Squeal.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And then when we have Bracken Bramble move in, what else we got? So we've got the enclosure. What else are we going to need? Like water bottles, things
Not
like that?
water bottles, they'll drink out of a shallow bowl.
Yeah.
So plenty of shallow water, and make sure that it's topped up regularly. We'd ask you to supplement the natural food with cat biscuits and cat food, just so we're sure that they're not going hungry.
Yeah.
Also, if their legs do get sore, the only cream I put on is Savlon.
Yeah.
So if you could just have a tube of Savlon in, just in case it looks a little bit sore, and then you can just clean it and pop a bit of Savlon on, and that acts as an antiseptic and it acts as a barrier cream as well for them.
So what sort of signs should we look out for when they're here? To show that they're not happy, or?
Well, because they're nocturnal.
It's quite hard.
It's quite difficult. But just if of an evening somebody could just try and cast an eye on them, and if they're moving about and they're fine, just leave them well alone.
I suppose it's just things like if they're eating and drinking.
Yeah, that's it.
Same with your pet, really, isn't it?
If you don't see them and the food hasn't gone for a couple of days, it's probably worth us having a scout round in the undergrowth and trying to find them, and just give them a little check. And I'll teach you how to make them uncurl, so you can check them properly. Because obviously, when they're asleep, they sleep curled up, and if you try and pick them up, they'll curl up even tighter. But I'll show you little tricks how to open them out so you can check them over.
How did you get into this?
My daughter found a hedgehog in the road.
Yeah, and that just started.
That's just started. I mean, I've always been involved with animal rescue and looking over injured birds, and people dumped animals on my doorstep and things like that. I've always, as a teenager, I volunteered at a local vets and things like that. So I've always had an interest. But then a little while ago, my daughter found a hedgehog in the road, and we rang the hedgehog hospital, and they said, "Yep, bring him straight up." And we kept ringing, "How's Hazel doing? How's Hazel doing?" And then the hedgehog hospital rang us and said, "She's good, but she's not big enough for winter. Would you like to overwinter her?" And we were like, "Of course we would. Of course we would." And they were like, "Well, if you've taken one, would you like a little friend for her?" "Yep.
Bring them all."
And before you knew it, we had
a garden full of hedgehogs.
So, and then it's just carried on. And now local people, because the hospital's on the Wirral, local people ring me and go, found a hedgehog. I'll go and get it, and then ring the hedgehog hospital and say, bring them in, they'll check them over.
So where is the hedgehog hospital?
The one I volunteer for is on the Wirral in Neston. And Mandy runs it from her home. And she's got this fabulous setup in her garden, and she's got lots and lots and lots of incubators and cages. And
so you wouldn't take them to like a normal vet's where if you hit a pet, you'd try and find somewhere.
There are very few vets, as I found out this weekend when one of mine needed an operation. I rang every vet and they were like, won't touch a hedgehog, won't touch a hedgehog. Whereas the vet near to where the hedgehog hospital is, he's obviously used to the hedgehogs, and he will do everything he can to save them.
That's very strange. I wonder why they won't. Is it just like they're not too?
They don't feel that if, like the likes of Bracken, they would say that he had no quality of life because he couldn't live wild, whereas we're prepared to make the adaptation so that he can live wild, you know, and put the time in. But normally a vet would go, it's a wild creature, it won't survive in the wild, kind of to put to sleep. Which is a logical, it's a logical rationale, but if we're prepared to put that time and effort in to make it possible, I mean, it's totally different if it's a front leg injury. There is nothing even we can do to rehabilitate them, because it would not be safe to, so we have to make that call.
I bet that's hard as well.
It's very, very hard, but sometimes putting them to sleep is the only option, and it's sad, but it's the kindest thing to do for the animal. But yeah, like I said, because we're prepared to put the effort in, so we've got this fantastic vet over on the Wirral, and he's used to dealing with hedgehogs of all shapes and sizes. And he's really great. But again, you know, it comes at a cost. It's expensive business because it's not cheap to.
How do you fund it? Is it?
We do fundraising things. We have an Amazon wish list, and people very kindly buy us cat food and dog food and milk and heat pads and things off the wish list. But yeah, we do charity auctions, raffles. It's boiling, isn't it? Charity auctions, raffles, fundraising, pet shows, things like that, you know, just to help generate some funds.
That's good. And then do you have like a Facebook page and things like that where people can...
Mandy's got a Facebook page for the hospital, and the hedgehogs I foster, I've got an Instagram page for, so I regularly post little updates. Not as often as I should, but I'll post updates just so people can see how the babies are growing and how they're all doing.
Well, I think that's it really, isn't it? Otherwise I'll just keep asking you loads of questions.
That's great.
Went off topic a few times.
No, I think we've got everything.